Hello, what's new? The mysteries of the mausoleum where the kings of Spain await their burial. The mausoleum of El Escorial, consisting of two separate areas, one intended for the kings and the other for the infantes, is located underground in the basilica, just a few meters from where the royal tombs are situated. The royal monastery of El Escorial was originally conceived not only as a commemorative monument for the victory in the Battle of San Quintin against the French, but also as a final resting place for the kings and members of the Habsburg dynasty. In 1573, Philip II ordered the mortal remains of his father, Charles I, and other Habsburg family members to be transferred to the temple and placed in an initial tomb, which would be replaced almost a century later by the imposing royal crypt that can be seen today. Notably, before reaching the royal pantheon and the pantheon of the infantes, which has served as the final resting place for most members of the Spanish royal family, there is a chamber that has always been shrouded in mystery, the preservation chamber, where bodies must wait for approximately 30 years for preservation. While not a strict secret, the guides at the royal monastery of El Escorial often lend an air of mystery to their narration by mentioning that there is an adjacent room to the Pantheon of the Kings, with its granite floor and vaulted ceiling, which functions as a preservation chamber and currently houses the mortal remains of several infantes and the counts of Barcelona. The underground chamber known as the Padridero de El Escorial, consisting of two distinct areas designated for kings and infantes, is located beneath the basilica, a short distance from the location of the royal tombs. The responsibility of caring for these three small, lightless chambers falls upon the Augustinian monks, who replaced the order of the Hieronymites during the reign of Philip II in 1885. Access to these rooms is restricted exclusively to them, although a specific timeframe for completing the natural biological decomposition process of bodies has not been established. It is estimated to take between 25 and 40 years to completely remove the moisture and unpleasant odors associated with the process. The primary function of the Padridero, in any case, is to reduce the dimensions of the bodies so that they can fit into the small lead coffins, which, in the case of the kings, measure only about 1 meter in length and 40 centimeters in width. The doors located on the second landing of the staircase provide access to spaces known as padrideros, whose purpose I will explain in detail to clarify the numerous erroneous stories circulating about them. These padrideros consist of 3 rooms resembling alcoves, completely devoid of light and ventilation. After the appropriate rituals and ceremonies for the transfer of the royal body to one of the mausoleums have been completed, the prior, accompanied by some elderly monks, descends to the mausoleum where the deceased lies, bringing with them masons and other servants. These masons carefully extract the sealed lead box containing the body, previously covered with a velvet cloth, and transport it to the padridero. While the masons carefully rebuild the dividing wall, the others drill 4 or more holes in the lead box and place it in the room on 4 wooden wedges, elevating it about 2 or 3 inches off the ground. At this point, the masons proceed to reconstruct the wall they had previously torn down. Under these conditions, the bodies remain in the padridero for a period of 30 to 40 years or even longer, until the moisture has been completely consumed, and they no longer emit unpleasant odors. At this point, they are transferred to their respective mausoleums. This process is meticulously described in the words of Friar José de Quevedo, who served as the monastery's librarian, in his work Historia del Real Monasterio de San Lorenzo del Escorial. Currently, in the Padridero de los Infantes, the bodies of Don Luis Alfonso de Baviera y Borbón, who was the grandson of Alfonso XII, and Dona Isabel Alfonso de Borbón y Borbón, also a granddaughter of Alfonso XII, can be found. However, Don Jaime de Borbón, the second son of King Alfonso XIII, is no longer there. He was the last to leave the Padridero de los Infantes to be permanently buried in the Pantheon of the Infantes, the place designated for princes, infantes, and queens who were not mothers of kings. Currently, there are still 23 empty tombs in the Pantheon of the Infantes. The process of transferring the bodies from the Padridero to the Pantheon is carried out discreetly and follows a rigorous protocol. This ceremony involves a member of the Augustinian community, another representative from the national Heritage, an architect overseeing the dismantling of the Royal Pantheon wall, 2 workers, and a doctor, who solely verifies that the decomposition process has concluded. On the other hand, the Royal Padritero currently houses the remains of Don Juan Carlos's parents, Don Juan de Borbon and Dona Maria de los Mercedes, who have rested in the monastery since April 1993 and January 2000, respectively. Once the bodies of the Counts of Barcelona are moved to their respective tombs, the Pantheon of Kings will be complete, unless an extension is carried out. The relocation of the Infantes and the kings from the Padritero to the Pantheon is carried out in a private setting and under an extremely rigorous protocol. With the exception of Felipe V, who was interred in the collegiate church of the royal site of La Granja de San Ildefonso alongside his second wife, and his son Fernando VI, who rests according to his wishes next to his wife Barbara de Braganza in the convent of the Salices Reals, all the kings of Spain since 1558 are buried in El Escorial. The exact date when the Padritero was established is difficult to pinpoint, but it certainly did not happen during the reign of Philip II. Instead, it took place with the creation of the Royal Pantheon, which was inaugurated in 1654 during the reign of Philip IV. This raises the question of whether it was an error of Philip II or Philip IV. According to a letter sent by Philip IV to Prior Fray Nicolas de Madrid, in which he ordered the transfer of the bodies to the new Pantheon, the king explained why he believed his grandfather Philip II had made a mistake, being the intention of the king, my lord, and my grandfather, when he built this royal house, that his burial, that of his glorious ancestors, and that of his successors should be there, but he did not designate a suitable place for this purpose. The royal crypt, built to address what seemed to be an oversight by Philip II, was designed by Juan Gómez de Mora, the architect responsible for the Plaza Mayor in Madrid. This crypt houses 26 marble tombs arranged in 7 columns on both sides of the altar, which were occupied by the ancestors of Philip IV. However, today, when the urgent need to expand the Pantheon is raised, some writers have questioned whether Philip IV's decision to move the bodies was the most suitable choice. Father Siguenza, the principal chronicler of the time, recounts how Philip II had indeed specified the place for this purpose, as he wished to create a cemetery for the ancients where the royal bodies would be buried and where religious services, masses, and vigils would be held, as was customary in the early church with the martyrs. On the other hand, architect Juan Rafael de la Cuadra Blanco, who delved into this topic in an article published in the Tribuna Abierta section of ABC on October 29, 1998, argues that Charles I made it clear in his will that he wanted to be buried with half of his body beneath the altar and the other half beneath the priest's feet, and his son, Philip II, fulfilled his wish. Proponents of this theory argue that if the original burial place of Philip II, Charles I, and their wives, Anna de Austria and Isabel, were reinstated, it would rectify what they consider a historical mistake and free up 4 tombs to accommodate 2 additional generations. The original site to which Philip II wished to bury his parents, aunts, 3 of his wives, and his son Don Carlos was a small vault located beneath the altar, just below the praying statues in the chancel and slightly above the Pantheon of Kings, also known as the Infiernos. Comment on what you thought of the news, give the video a like, and subscribe to the channel. If you deem it necessary, you can share this video through your social media networks.